this is Kryptonite Dragon and Dante Zero bringing you another edition of the PodStation by TrophiesonPSN.
Woohoo!
How you doing, sir?
Good. Hot weather. Thunderstorms, you gotta love them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's keeping us from podcasting, and we're podcasting right now with a storm, so hopefully we won't have any more broken recordings, any cutouts, any of that stuff.
Yeah. It's God's way of telling us not to record or something.
Is that right? You don't think he likes our podcast?
No. It's a show off, really, if you think about it, that he has to throw a lightning storm at us to stop us podcasting.
It's pretty consistent. It's
Yeah.
been about every day here. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's kind of unusual we got the same weather on both sides of the planet. That's cool.
I know, tell me about it. It's usually raining here.
So you have a game of the week this week. What would that be?
I do. I didn't know if you were doing a site roundup though. So
yeah,
you
go ahead.
can tell that
we don't have to have the same order each time.
You can tell that the heat's affected us. Don't know where they're coming or going.
I don't know. And I'm in the air conditioning. You might have to sit there with your window open and stuff, but no.
Yeah, birds tweeting away.
I'm still recovering from nasty sunburn from being out there.
Yeah. We have to remember that heat waves in Britain aren't usually a regular thing, so like houses here aren't fitted with aircon as standard. Our idea of aircon is when it's sunny and above 25 degrees, as everybody opens their windows and doors to the house and then just put fans on. Nobody here has any reason to have standard aircon, and if you do, you're probably a lot richer than I and most people in the UK are. So yeah, we don't have aircon here really. It's a bummer though. If it carries on like this the next couple of years, I can imagine aircon sales will go up. But we digress again.
Give us a game.
Yeah, PSN pick of the week. Sadly, this is not going to be one for PS3 owners. This is for PS Vita owners this week. It's a cool little game called Nun Attack. Okay, and it's basically, it costs $1.99. You play as this group of nuns whose sister goes rogue, embraces the dark side, and so your nuns that you control suit up with guns, which are completely upgradable and customizable, and you go off on a little journey to beat the crap out of your sister, shooting loads of bad guys. In the process, it's quite a humorous kind of art design to it, but yeah, the game's pretty fun. You basically earn coins each time you complete a mission. The idea is you complete all goals in a mission and you move on to the next one. There's all kinds of different various baddies that you'll come across, and there is an element of strategy to it as well, because when you start off you only can pick like one or two nuns at a time, and then later on you'll be able to have more than one nun. When you get towards the end of the game, you'll have about 4 different nuns, and each nun has its own speciality. So there's ones that have shotguns, ones that have machine pistols, one that has an assault rifle, etc., etc. And as I say, you can upgrade all those guns, and you can also buy miracles to help you on your way. So you'll get miracles that allow you to revive your fallen nun should one of them die. You can cast fire spells, ice spells, healing spells. So there really is an element of strategy to the whole thing. For the most part, it uses the PS Vita's touchscreen to control the nuns and stuff as you go through the levels. The levels aren't particularly fantastic. In terms of what you have to do, it's usually find a portal. You either bounce a thing that comes out like a fireball that comes out of a portal. You can use the touchscreen to bounce those back and destroy portals. Then you'll have fights, and you can collect chests to get extra brand new weapons and stuff like that. But you know what? It'll take you about 5 hours to 100% the game, and it's totally worth your time. I can think of worse games that I've spent 5 hours on. That are not as fun and not as quirkily designed. And I mean, come on, it's nuns with guns, you know what I mean? So
Who doesn't like that?
exactly, especially for a Hitman fan as well. If you've played Hitman Absolution, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, Nun Attack is a really great game. They've done a great job upgrading it because originally it was a PlayStation Mobile title. And so they've actually upgraded it from PlayStation Mobile to a full-on PSN title available for Vita owners that utilises all the stuff, and the HD visuals are present as a result of that. The added trophies as well is nice. The trophies themselves aren't particularly complicated. You won't have to do anything fancy for those that are wanting to trophy. But you know, the best thing about it is the price. It's £1.99,
Cool.
which is about £2.5, £3
Yeah.
for 5 hours of a fun game. So you know, if you're a Vita owner, by all means, I highly recommend picking up Nun Attack. And I'm certainly looking forward to the guys behind it. You know, if they can push out a nice polished title like that for, you know, £2, I'm intrigued to see what else they can do if they'll do more smaller titles along those lines that are pretty cheap, or if they do a bigger title, you know, and more. I guess a bigger indie game would be the way to describe it. But if they can do one of them, I'd certainly be interested to see what they can come up with. So
Well,
yeah,
we may start seeing a lot more of the phone games coming over, and I would think that they would improve it where they can.
yeah.
And you know, those are probably priced around the same.
Well, that's the interesting thing, you see, because PlayStation Mobile is essentially like phone games. You know, you can
Hmm.
with PlayStation Mobile games, you can take them on any device that has PlayStation Mobile certified, and the majority of the games that have appeared on that service have all been sort of, you know, mobile phone based games. And now, I mean, although Sony doesn't do a great job of promoting PlayStation Mobile these days, as it did when it first announced the platform itself, nowadays you're starting to see a lot of success with PlayStation Mobile games, to the point of where they're now actually making a transition to actual full PSN games, especially on the Vita. I mean, we've had something called Tales of Rotating Octopus HD, obviously Nun Attack, Coconut Dodge from Future Lab. Got a HD upgrade for Vita and cross-buy functionality. So, yeah, it's good to see them. You know, that PlayStation Mobile is that nice stepping stone to sort of go. Yeah, we kind of designed this as a mobile game, but we want to take it that bit further and you know, give people that have the Vita or a PS3, you know, a better version of the game. And it really seems to be working out for the publishers and developers that are doing that. So, yeah, I'm definitely keen to see more of the PlayStation Mobile type games come forward, because as much as I hate playing games on mobile, I think there's quite a few good concepts that would actually fit really well with the PS Vita and the portability ethos of the Vita. So yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy for more mobile titles to come upwards, especially if they're going to retail for about £2 as a digital download.
Hmm.
So
Well,
yeah,
they
bring
just
it
need to
for
work
us.
on more phone types for me. I looked up my phone just recently, and it's still not supported. Mm.
Yeah,
It'd be nice if they were all kind of a little bit more accessible.
yeah. Well, I imagine there probably will be more
It'll develop
phones.
that way, I'm sure. Yeah.
I imagine more phones will be added into the whole PlayStation Mobile side of things as they push on with the PlayStation 4 always connected ethos. So, 'cause I can't imagine, you know, Sony has said themselves with the PS4, you know, purchasing and being able to message via PSN. They are working on Android and iOS apps for that. I've even seen it on Twitter where they've been recruiting people specifically for those jobs and whose expertise are in planning apps. So yeah, I mean, even if you've got PlayStation, if you haven't got a Sony Ericsson phone at the moment, and a phone that isn't compatible with PlayStation Mobile, fear not, because I imagine those new apps, when they come with the PS4, will probably eliminate any need for the compatibility side of things.
Yeah.
And having a specific phone. So, but yeah, as I say, it's a positive way. I'm glad to see that the developers are getting more successful as a result of it, and yeah, I mean they're paving the way quite nicely going forward. My only concern is that Sony doesn't do enough to push PlayStation Mobile as they probably should. I know a few people on Twitter have actually been actively campaigning Sony to include PlayStation Mobile games on store updates, and they started to do that now. So hopefully we'll see PlayStation Mobile become a success, and as I say, that will kick on for those that don't want to access it on PlayStation Mobile to have an alternative and better version of the game.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well,
So
see that kind of leads into the site roundup.
Yep.
You and I were talking before the podcast, and I wanted to point out that we've got mobile apps now for our site as well as the other site, our sister site that we're opening that's related to YouTube. I'll have more about that. I'll actually post in the forums, but for those of you that are not aware, there's a link data down there in the sitemaps footer for Gaming Unraveled, which will be focused on video game production. Most specifically, YouTube will be the focus in helping people that make videos for games.
Go on, say the tagline, because I love that tagline.
Putting
Go
you
on.
into YouTube.
Go on, now do it with a cheesy accent or something.
Cheesy accent.
Putting you
into YouTube. I sound like an Indian phone rep.
Yeah. Less said about
What
that, the
technical
better.
problem can I help you today, sir?
Let's not go down that road. Carry on.
Edit, delete. So yeah, I mean, the key here is now we've had before where we've had the phone, a standard mobile skin that you can view the sites on with a mobile phone, and it's pretty basic. It's pretty plain. It's like white background. It only shows major things because with a mobile phone, typically people like to have bigger buttons and all that, and be able to see stuff a little bit more quality without looking at images and having everything shrunk down. So really what we're talking about here is you have several options, whether you're on Android, iPhone, whatever. You can still view the site as normal with a normal skin, and it'll work just as it does. It should work perfectly fine. I've seen it on different mobile devices, and the sites both look exactly like they do in that version. However, you can experience certain problems with certain outdated browsers on phones, which can make things, most notably with like Internet Explorer, for example, you can have leaks where on the front page, the right column will extend down into the footer and cover that. That's typically caused by some outdated software, because what happens is a lot of these things, especially Internet Explorer is a very, very good example. Older versions of Internet Explorer, it's a very poor browser. It has a lot of specific code to make it work, and it's simply, we're not going to support going back to older editions of that stuff. So chances are, if you're experiencing any kind of problem, it's a browser-related issue. Now, on to the other options you have. So you have, there's two options right there. You have the see it as it is on a computer. I recommend that for tablets and anything like that. Then you also have the phone version, which is very simplified. You can change between those very easily. There's a link down at the bottom that says full site, or you can actually pull down a menu and select mobile style. Now, another thing I've implemented is something called Forum Runner, which is we actually have apps for both sites that are available through your store. You can search them on Android or iOS. You can actually go in there and see, find an app for our site, specifically for the site, and download it. And it may cost you $1.50 or something like that, whatever the app prices are for your stores. But you take that app and you get the regular skin versions so that it fits your screen. So you have something that's a little bit in between there. And it has what's known as push button notifications. For those of you that are not aware what that is, that's basically there's big old buttons and stuff that you just have to press instead of like kind of the other actions and stuff that you might take on a forum.
And it also means that if you're not necessarily connected to Wi-Fi, you will still get notifications and stuff. So
yes, bunch of things like that. it's one of those things where you get a little bit more control and everything like that with the app. So, just a few options out there. It's really dependent on you, and I will say that most phones, if you go to the mobile version, it'll strip the ads out. That can be a benefit to some people, but generally don't expect that we're gonna make those skins look so really cool for mobile
Yeah.
versions and all that, because that's a lot of extra work. But anyway, Gaming Unraveled's going to be kicking off here in a couple of days. It's largely up and running. We still got a lot of stuff to do in the background with hiring some staff, getting the forums set up with some rules and facts, postings, that kind of thing. And I would encourage everyone to check that out. And then next, look for it to the other thing about that site is it's going to have two skins itself. It's in a red and black and also a blue and black, and you can select those at the bottom of it. And set your standard in your control settings. So it'll be available in two. We're still doing some tweaking. Be patient with that. It's not drawing anything from Trophies on PSN. I want to say that very clearly, because people are like, "What are you doing? You're doing another site. We're still working on this other one." All of them are going to be a work in progress. That's how you continue to improve. We have to be adding things all the time. So in essence, if you look at it the way it truly is, Trophies on PSN will never be finished. We're always going to be wanting to add something new. The key here is I'm not taking our programmers away to deal with stuff over there. That one's in a kind of a different mode altogether. We're not pulling Sony API stuff. It'll be a great benefit to both sites to have them both kicking off now, linking to one another, and some of the same postings and stuff can go on both, etc., etc. And it'll be a benefit to the whole system. Now, specifically on Trophies on PSN, some of the other things you may have noticed, there's been a lot of changes with, not only the site map down at the bottom, for those of you that are keeping track of that kind of stuff, but we've added some functionality on the front end with the games. Right now, we're pulling just a lot of data. We got some people putting in data, and we're actually scraping some data from some other sites for release data and stuff like that, release dates. I'm in contact with the ESRB about seeing about what we can display from them in our data on the front pages. And then, the other thing, we've built a system for hiding some of the completed trophies. So if you go to the trophy guides now, you can actually check some boxes and you can actually hide trophies that you've completed. So you can more easily use those guides on the front end to complete the trophies that you are targeted at. Now, originally we were thinking we would make it so that if you've completed a game, some of the game's trophies, that you sync it, it would know that and it would clear those out. But that doesn't allow you to easily use it if you have your laptop sitting there, you're playing a game, you complete a trophy, then what do you have to do? You have to go sync it, and then you have to sync it on Trophies on PSN, and then then it changes. I thought that system was a little bit more cumbersome, and I thought the checkboxes would be a little bit more kind of in the moment, would have a lot more functionality. Because it allows you to then check ones that perhaps you haven't completed, but you don't have to target. Those ones that come naturally when you play a game, or that platinum that's always at the top, and you start paging down, the first thing you see is that platinum, and it's like, well, you got to beat all the other trophies to get that. You know how to earn that platinum, so you can kind of close that and hide it. All the ones that you get naturally in the game or by playing the stories, you can just close those, and then that'll allow you to see those ones that you want to actually go for. And then one of the other things that we were looking at possibly doing, and maybe we get some feedback on that if you guys are interested, is also the printing functionality, to be able to print, just plain text of the trophy guides without all the images and stuff like that, making it a little bit easier on people that have, printer ink to consider.
Yeah, I was going to say I used to do that back in the day, like PC games and stuff. It was like, I don't want multiple tabs open. I'm going to print all these things off and then just like
Yeah, take
go
a
through
marker
my
and
own
put a big
thing.
X
Yeah,
across it. Yeah.
yeah, done.
Those are typically, those are more used for, like, back in the days where walkthroughs. I mean, there's still a lot of sites that it's all about the walkthrough, which obviously, if you don't stay on the exact path, can be a real, pain in the butt. But there's still maybe some need for that, and I guess I just want to hear from people and see if they want that kind of functionality, because we don't want to work hard and add something if it doesn't make sense to the community.
Well, I'm
There's a
going to
thing of the
say
past. I don't know.
I'm going to say personally, I'd totally welcome that. If you can have a choice of printing it with or without images, because obviously, if say for example a guide has an image, say like a Vita guide has an image, and shows you the location of a collectible within that image, and that's part of the guide, and I print that out, I'd be happy to do that as well. So I would like the choice, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be something to consider. But I'm going to vote yay on that because totally would like to see that. It'd make my
Oh,
life a
cool.
little bit easier, personally speaking. But
Well,
it's not
the other
just about me. Bring
yeah,
bring your feedback.
as always, bring the feedback. The other thing, we're looking at, into the future when we start adding all these other guides and everything like that. We want to make it easier to change them. We want to make it easier to add them. So a big part of what's been going on behind the scenes is working on the guide. And I want to personally thank Rochambeau for his work. He's been working closely with the programmer to test that system out. I haven't really used it. I'm not experienced in uploading the guides. Honestly, I've tweaked some guides and changed some things directly with each trophy, but I've never actually uploaded an entire guide or changed an entire guide. So I'm the last person to be proclaim themselves an expert in that. But really, the new system we have makes it very simple to just kind of copy and paste from the forums and put it up there. And then in the future, we hope to have a template system where you could actually just go and click on a trophy list where no guide has been completed and just pull down all the code that you need. It would have the standard code for the header part where you've got, how difficult the game is, the rating, all that stuff. And then you would just type in your roadmap, and you would type in under each trophy what the how to earn that trophy. Yeah. And if we're able to do that, that'll be a very good system. It'll make guide writing very, very easy. It'll eliminate all of the code hassle that occurs where you got to try and put BB code in there and find links and whatnot. So that'll be a really big thing for guide writers. And then next,
absolutely, I can't wait to see that.
Adding even more stuff to the front end. All that data. So
yeah,
we're right on the cusp of just adding a lot of things that users are really going to want to see. Our membership is increasing. Obviously, we've got a lot of stuff going right with SEO. I was just on the site and there was like 91 people on. So it's good to see. We're making some good progress. I like it. Keep the social media coming, please. Tweet us, definitely. Facebook us. Keep in contact with the news. Give them your comments and feedback. And these teams are going to be growing. There's going to be a little bit changing with the staff lately. We'll have more about that to come, I guess, in the future.
Yeah, and not too distant future, though. Probably be in the next couple of weeks. We'll let people know more, and you'll start to see more happen with the news stuff, which will obviously have an impact on the social media side of things as well. So Indeed. Yeah, and there'll be more interesting content coming as well. It won't just necessarily be news related stuff. There will be more stuff happening with the social media, so there'll be some competitions and stuff. There'll be videos, especially videos that'll be up on both the Facebook page, on Google Plus, on Twitter, and also on thing. We've also looked at another service called Vine, which is like a video service for Twitter for those that don't know. It allows us to create funny memes and do looping videos and stuff. So we're going to experiment with a lot of those kinds of things over the coming weeks as well. So do make sure that you are following us on things like Twitter and Facebook, because there is a lot of content that we are working and producing, etc. So it's not just going to be your random, oh look, I've tweeted out a story here. There will be things like pictures and videos and stuff, and it won't just all be like, here's my video review, or here's some video of me playing this game on Vita so you can see what it's going to be like. There will be comedy stuff and skits and things like that. So do keep your eyes out and do make sure you're following on all those things, because, we need your help to help that grow. It's having an impact already. We're not that far off 100 followers on Twitter. Now, for some people, that might not seem a lot, but actually, that's the hardest benchmark. Once you get to 100 followers on Twitter, it's only just going to go exponentially from there. So it's just getting to that 100 point. After that, we're set. So, do keep following us, do keep tweeting us, etc. Because, as I say, once we get to that benchmark, it's just going to open so many doors for everyone. So
Sweet, sweet. Alrighty. Well, on to today's topic. You ready? You want to break us
yes,
in?
yeah. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I thought it was worth discussing because, like, I know the summer's quiet for games and stuff, but when you actually think about it over the course of a year, we have, as gamers, we have our sort of routine in terms of game shows. So, for example, we have E3, we have the Spike VGAs in December, we have Gamescom in August, Tokyo Game Show in September, and that's kind of our routine. But what makes me wonder about a lot of some of this stuff is it seems to now start be branching out. I mean, just this last week we've had, you know, gaming have a big presence at like Comic Con, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had the San Diego Comic Con, but while that was going on, there's also a comic convention in Manchester, the MCM, and then there's PAX East, and all these three conventions have had something big showcased at them. For example, like at Comic Con San Diego, there was a whole lot of video game news that come out of that. Then you had all the first sort of gameplay footage from Saints Row 4 and things up at MCM, and then you've got like all the Borderlands 2 and 2K stuff coming out from PAX in Australia, and it just makes me wonder. I mean, are conventions, if you're a comic fan, you go to a comic convention to read comics and talk about comics and buy comic memorabilia. It seems that video games start to be taking over that now, and it's like it's that stopgap for announcement stuff. And I just wondered, is that kind of a worrying sign that something like video gaming is, as an industry, is now actually starting to take that over? And are we actually having too many conventions? If they are we having way too many in a year?
Well, I can tell you, I have not been to, any of the gaming conventions or anything like that personally. I know you have, but I have been to a number of Comic Cons back in the past.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I've noticed the same kind of thing because it's largely like when I went to comic conventions I'll say when I was little, um, just say it
When
like
you're
that,
about 30, yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah, when you're
They
about
there
30.
were some very large ones, and you go there and you would see people that are from the comic industry, at tables signing, and you would have basically booths and stuff set up with large numbers of comics to go through. They'd have events in the middle where they'd have speeches and stuff from different authors and illustrators, and that's how Comic Con went. And you didn't see a whole lot of like cosplay, and you didn't see a whole lot of tie-in with movies and with games. And that has all just changed dramatically because that's back in the day when comic conventions were for comics. And now, and
Yeah.
now, yeah, I mean, you're right. And Comic Con is another thing that it's in all major cities. It actually traverses, like here in the states, it traverses all across the United States.
Well, I was going to say, I mean,
There's
you've
one
got
in Columbus in Ohio, and then there's one in Orlando, Florida, and there's one in San Diego, and of course the
yeah,
San Diego one's considered the major one and the main one.
yeah. And
But
you've got
throughout
San,
the year, there's Comic Cons everywhere.
and that's not even taking into account the pack stuff with and penny
Hmm.
arcade things as well. I mean, I was reading some interesting articles, and this is why it sort of got me thinking about the whole thing. I mean, just at San Diego Comic Con, they were talking about indie game developers showing off their products, and they said they've only got room for like 50 or 60 indie stands within the hall, and they've had applications of 200 plus
Hmm.
to showcase on the floor, and it's a very hard decision for him. I mean, it's getting to the point now where, and this was also the case at E3 now, where indie gaming and is experiencing such a huge boom that it's actually spilling over into areas of the floor, and that's what I'm saying about, in some respects, that's actually painting a perfect picture to kind of say, well, is gaming really taking over the comic industry in that respect? I mean, I understand that there's all this link between, there's quite a lot of comic book based games when you
Yeah.
think of things like DC and Marvel, for example, the two big comic industries. You know they're going to have games come out for them, but it's getting to the point now where it's like let's show off some new Batman footage, Arkham Origins or whatever footage, and that draws more attention than say a comic book artist's newest comic for the Batman franchise, and that kind of worries me a little bit because I can kind of understand why there's that affiliation between the games industry and comics, because obviously when you think of the art production and graphics design, etc., that goes into making a video game, obviously they're going to want to tap up great artists, and obviously comic books are a great way to showcase your art. But at the same time, it's getting to the point now where, as I say, it just seems to be overwhelming. A few years back, actually, my sister asked me if I wanted to go to this anime expo in London, and I was kind of, I looked through the sort of pamphlet that I got, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'd love to go and see the video games. I'm not interested in the cosplay or some of the anime things that were going on. Even though I have an interest in anime, I should add that. But I was kind of like, I want to go. If I want to go, I want to go for the video games. And in the end, I didn't go because it was a small thing. But actually, when you think about it, maybe I should have gone, because that was one occasion where the video games were kind of on the back burner of it.
Yeah.
But now, when I look at some of the events now, I just think it's all about the video games, video games, video games. So even with the event in Manchester, as I say, just looking at Twitter over the weekend, and it was crazy about the amount of tweets about how people were really happy that they played Saints Row and stuff. And I just thought, surely there's more that's gone on at that convention than that's exciting than great. We've played Saints Row for the first time.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's really concerning. I genuinely think, because now it's now becoming a case of not only where we are getting more AAA games, and we've talked about this before, where you're now getting to a point of where we're getting so many AAA games in a year that it's really hard to keep up. We're now actually getting so many video game shows, for example. It's hard to keep up with that as well.
Yeah. There's some crossover going on. Obviously, you have things that are TV shows, they're comics, graphic novels, and video games, all wrapped in the same, under the same license.
Yeah.
I think that it'll continue, and that's one of those things. Like I pointed out before, like you see, Hollywood moving closer to the video game industry. And I think you're going to see more of that, where it's almost a natural transition, because you could love anime and you could watch anime cartoons and all that other kind of stuff, and then you're going to find some of that same kind of style and everything in like JRPGs, and so people want to grab onto a character in all of its forms. You like Batman in a comic, you're going to like Batman in a movie, you're going to like Batman playing it as a video game.
Yeah.
It only makes sense. I think another thing that's at play here too that we can't ignore is that you've also seen, at least it happened and they moved away from it, but you've seen some of the conventions and stuff are geared towards only those that are in the industry. You have developers and stuff that are invited, and you have news, members and stuff that are invited, but you don't have it open to the public.
Yeah.
You've seen a little bit of that happen. Whereas,
well, you still have those, but I mean, they're
but they're largely like the public wants to know what's going on with those, and they're not. It's one thing to release it to the public and say, hey, this is what's coming, and get that excitement going. It's another to show it off to your competitors in the industry. Obviously, there can be some benefit to that, but then at the same time, it's like if everyone that makes a product gets together in the same room and says, yay, yay, yay for us. People on the outside are kind of going, well, where are you telling us how that went? Where's our show? And there's a large discrepancy between a lot of those shows with the cost, the invite, the credentials that you need to actually see some of the stuff and play some of the stuff, compared to, like Comic-Cons that are everywhere, and they're open for, the public, and the
See,
ticket prices are a lot less.
I'm wondering if that's why we're starting to see more indie games, make debuts, etc. at things like Comic Cons and etc. Because even if an indie game doesn't have a comic reference, I mean, the fact they have an indie section in a Comic Con convention is bizarre in itself. But I wonder if part of the reason we're starting to see, you know, over over well flooding of people applying and wanting to get into that space is because of the amount of indie games that have proven to be successful. And I mean, if say you're an indie game developer, for example, and Sony's going to be there showing off, the latest PS4 game or some new footage from San Diego Comic Con, that's a great way for indie games developers to kind of network without having to go through all the barriers. For example, chasing down Sony, you might have to phone them and you speak to a certain office in London, for example, and they put you on to Tokyo, who then put you back to America. Do you see what I mean? It's an easier process for indie developers to meet and greet, and I wonder if that's why we've seen the increase at things like Comic Con, even though the indie games aren't actually related to a majority of the stuff that goes on at Comic Con, like movie trailers based on comics and comics themselves. I wonder if that's part of the reasoning behind it.
Hmm. Yeah, and
It would
there's a lot to
certainly
be
make a lot more
there's a
sense.
lot to be said about the comic industry has gone through its phases with indie developers as well, where it was not too long in the past where the major publishers and stuff like that were fighting against, especially graphic novels. I can remember their time where it's just like every graphic novel was like independent little publishers.
Mm.
It's just, I guess it's the same kind of mentality of coming up and doing something new and having new characters. That's what video games are about. That's what comics are about. It's really what movies are about. New stories. So I don't know.
But
They're kind of all tied together in my mind, but I
so
can just see how people could latch onto that. If they're into one, it's almost a given that it's a similar interest enough that you
so
know.
let me ask you this then: as a gamer, right? Obviously, when you see all this stuff come out, I mean, as I say, you're talking pretty much that there's some kind of comic convention or event going on pretty much every 3 weeks now. Do you not find that sort of overwhelming somewhat as a gamer? Because it's kind of like, you get over the excitement of E3 and then like you're sort of just calming down for that, getting used to the rest of the year, planning what you're going to buy, etc. What looks good, what doesn't, and then before you know it, a couple of weeks have passed, and you're being set up to get all excited again, and it just seems to be this 3 week phase where it's like, yeah, I'm really excited, and then 3 weeks later, it's sort of died down a bit, and then it's like, yeah, I'm excited again. Do you not find that kind of overwhelming as a gamer?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
Um,
timing's some of it too, but I guess like like I heard the PS4 and everything was playable at San Diego Comic Con.
yeah,
Things like that like E3, I didn't have that. Um,
yeah.
there's
Well, that begs the question: why was San Diego Comic Con more important to show the
well, see, that's what I mean. It's
PS4 off
it's
as
kind of a
E3?
timing thing too. It's like if you've got events going on, and think about it from Sony's perspective. It's like, okay, we go to E3, we pay tens of thousands of dollars to have this conference room, and we have to give this
And
big
then
speech.
some.
Everyone's looking to have all these answers of what's coming and everything. And now there's some time has gone by, and now it's like, well, let's see what it plays like, and they can just kind of show up there and be like, well, we're not really here for a comic thing. Can we just have a little section and just let everybody play the PS4, and we don't have to have a big press conference and throw a lot of money at it. And I mean, let's face it, not everyone can go to E3. If E3 was, even if it was priced less, you can't have millions and tens of millions of gamers all showing up. Let me in. So this is a way to kind of bring it. I think it's more to the community. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been to there's some pretty big events in the United States outside of that, outside of comic conventions and things. But then there's also versions of that on local levels a lot of times. And a lot of times you'll have more access and more fun by going to the smaller event in a local city as opposed to going to a major city and trying to, and that works for a lot of things. You as a person paying a ticket, you'll pay more to go to
Well, see,
E3, and
here's
you might stand in line for 2 hours to play one game. Whereas if you go to the Comic Con, maybe
yeah, but see, here's my
experience something totally different.
speaking as a European though, and here's my gripe with it. I mean, I've often said that we do need more game shows throughout the course of the year because I don't think E3 TGS and Gamescom is enough. And I mean, certainly in the case of Europe, for example, I mean, when you think about how many popular franchises and how many sales European games developers are responsible for, and not just on the PlayStation formats, you've got to look at Microsoft as well. From that perspective, and you just think, surely they should be doing more to celebrate it. And so let's have some more game shows because here's where I'm finding the conflict is like if I go to a comic convention, I want to go and I want to get sucked into the environment of just being a comic buff and do the whole thing like you've probably seen in numerous movies or TV shows like The Guild, for example, where it's all about the comic and there's just this camaraderie and this connection with comics. I don't want to go. I know this might sound like me being complacent, but I don't want to go to a comic convention and then find myself not getting excited about comics, but instead getting excited because I'm playing the next generation of gaming. I'm kind of like that. Really annoys me, and and this is why I say, why should we have video games taking over something like a Comic Con, for example, when really what the video games industry should be doing is, doing more stuff to bring it to the public through, game shows, for example. I mean, coming back to the, sort of like the late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, Sony used to do road tours, certainly here in the UK, and they bundle everything into a trailer and, they'd take it on a tour of the UK and it'd stop in major cities and be in the town centre and you hop in and play the latest PS1 or PS2 games and stuff, and that was great, but if, say, for example, a Comic one did that and then it said, oh, while you're here looking at our comics and celebrating the comics, why not play a video game? Or the other way around, if during the road tour they were like, oh, we've got all these comics as well as these new games, do you want to look at the comics? I'd be like, nah, I'm here to play PlayStation, yeah.
Well, at the same time too, like let's think about it. Okay, you just made the latest Avengers video game or the Walking Dead video game. Do you tout that at an E3 where everything else is going on and like the consoles are stealing the spotlight?
Well, actually, I think...
Or do you say, well, that's for the movie, so anything involving a Hollywood premiere, that's the only time to do that? Or do you say, well, we've got a comic connection there, and we've got
actually,
a connection.
I think if you are doing
that for your movie, and you go and you show your game, and let people play it, that's what I guess it's kind of a thing. They're so linked and so diffused that
if you're sort of announcing, say, for example, in your case in point, The Walking Dead, for example, if you're announcing a new Walking Dead game at a video game convention, not only have you then got the attention of video gamers that like The Walking Dead, but you've also then, you're starting to appeal to comic book fans of The Walking Dead that aren't necessarily gamers, and so that brings new people into the whole gaming industry. So I think there is a fair call to announce a video game based on a comic, and it'll be the same with, like you say, the Avenger type things. If there was a new Avengers video gaming, why not announce it at E3, make a big splash, because then not only have you got people who are already video gamers' attention, but you're also drawing in those that wouldn't necessarily game, for example. And I think that's a better way to do it, and not the other way around. Let's invade comic people's thing.
So you think they should show comic stuff off?
Shove it in their face.
So E3 should have comic books and movies.
No, I'm just saying if they're putting, if they're going to make a game based on a comic, make a big song and dance about it, because it'd have more positive effect bringing people in than, say, taking the video game to a comic book convention and shoving it in your face and saying, buy this games console, stop reading your comics because we made you a video game based on your favourite comic. That's the way it comes across to me. It's like, and that's what I'm kind of worried about, because as you say, I can kind of understand the movie side of it. I really can a little bit. I wouldn't say necessarily
Well,
agree with it.
you're largely a video game fan, so I can't see you taking offense trying to defend a comic convention for turning to video game. And the other thing I can tell you, like looking back, the comic conventions that I went to, they're largely just the nature of comics. You can't sit there and just read your favorite comics. You go to a comic convention, you say, I'm going to try and get that issue that I'm missing and plug in a kind of a hole in my collection so that I can go home later and read that.
Yeah.
Which isn't like, woo, it's exciting. I can sit here and read comics around everyone else that has the same interest in comics. It's not as interactive. It's not as attractive. And I'm certain that the Comic Cons still have a large selection of comics and still
I don't
all that
know.
stuff for comic people. Even if they're not a video game player, chances are probably really good that they are. But I would say even if they aren't, I'm sure they're not completely ruining their Comic Con by.
Well, I've not
Where's the
been
comics?
fortunate.
Oh, we don't have any.
Well, that's the way I personally feel that it's going. It's going to be a case of where's the comics? Oh, have you got your Kindle with it? Download it on that, and while you're there, you can download an iPad game and stuff, and it's all.
Well, yeah, comics are largely going to that too. My son was doing that a few years ago. He was reading, hit some of his favorite comics, and they were, he's getting digital versions delivered via computer where he's actually able to just, see and read the comics from that. Never actually having, paper and ink in his hand, and
But I feel like I kind of missed out because I haven't really, been to a comic convention, and I kind of always wanted to go, and I always had this expectation that it's all going to be all about comics, and it's like now if I go, I've got this expectation of, yes, there'll be comics, but also I'm now going to have to deal with video games as well, and I don't know which one I'm going to be excited about more, and it's going to cause me to be confused, and am I going to enjoy it as a result of that more or less, or there's all those kinds of things that run through your head going through to something like that, and I think that's a shame to actually be at that point with it. As I say, why not have more game shows, because there is a market for people. When people announce new games and stuff, the first thing they want to do is get their hands on it. As video game gamers and gamers in general, they're like, yeah, I'd really love to play that right now, so give them a show. Sony UK, in all fairness, have tried their best. I mean, they've done things like the beta rooms and the access preview nights where you can go for beer and a pizza on the house and play video games. But again, it comes down to poor selection of cities. A lot of the time it was in London, Manchester, and Birmingham. I mean, what about everybody that lives in Scotland? It's a bit far to travel from Glasgow to Manchester for free beer and pizza just to play the latest PS3 game. So, Sony UK have made strides like that, but I'd like to see them take it a bit further and on a more regular basis as well, because it seems to be every sort of 6 months they do one, which is a bit of a shame. And the way
wouldn't it be more like the video game stores to do something like that?
Well, see, Game have started to do lock-ins in as well, but it's hit and miss. You never really know. There's not like a schedule for them, so it really just depends on which game store, for example, fancies doing a lock-in. I know they did one for The Last of Us recently, but I was saying to my sister about it because I was laughing at Twitter because our local game store said, "Oh, do you want to come play The Last of Us for one of the lock-ins?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool. It's only 5 miles to Huntingdon, not far to travel and stuff." And then the next thing I know is the next tweet is, "If you want to come to this event, join us at the Hampton store in Peterborough, which is about another 30 miles away." So you've got one store saying, "Yeah, we'll do a lock-in, but we're going to do it at another store." So how is that confused? But coming back to the convention thing, I'm going to tell you one of the things that really annoys me with these conventions as well: the collectibles. Now I know you're probably scratching it, thinking, why would he be annoyed at that? But it's especially with the video game stuff as well. There's a lot of video game collectibles that are sold as exclusives for San Diego Comic Con, etc., like that, and they're one-offs, or they've only got 1,000 of them to sell, and it annoys me that they're trying to grab business from comic fans, knowing damn well that if they actually put that product for sale on their website, fans of that franchise, fans of that series as video games are going to want to buy that. So why make it so that it's like limited to Comic Con or PAX East or PAX West or whatever? I don't get the marketing strategy for video games companies to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Do you
don't
not
know.
find that bizarre?
I don't know. I was actually wondering a little bit about the artists that are involved in that and how much of a crossover there is between the different things. It
Yeah,
makes you
but take,
wonder. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, take for example, if I wanted to get like a specific T-shirt,
Hmm.
yeah, I would have to buy tickets to go to San Diego Comic Con to then try and muscle my way through thousands of people to
Fighting
then
for
get to the
same free
store
thing.
to buy that T-shirt, or even it may not even be a case of buying it.
Yeah,
As you
hand it out.
mentioned there, you can get all kinds of freebies, and all for doing that when as a company, as a video game company, you could say, well, we're going to do these limited editions.
But
We'll
see,
make
comic
ten
cons did
thousand
that
of them as
long
opposed to
before video games did.
yeah. But I mean, that was with comics. Now we're
Well, it
seeing
wasn't
video
always with
games,
comics. There was other things too. There were
but
shirts and items, and they
yeah,
they they they,
based
they
around
probably
comics. Now
started
we're
that
seeing
long before any video game place or
yeah,
even
but I mean,
probably
that
movie
was
industry even thought of that because you used
yeah,
to could go to comic cons and you would get free stuff. You would get things. It was like you went to such and such comic con and it was like coffee mug, keychain, T-shirt. It was that stuff was it wasn't as directly related with
yeah.
premium things. But there's certainly, I don't know. It's an industry standard to kind of
Yeah,
do
but
that.
what worries me is we're now seeing video games companies do that, and I can kind of understand doing it localized on a smaller scale for say a Comic Con because it's not just the heavyweights as you say. You got the indie public comic publishers there and stuff like that. You can understand that, and some of those indie comics are not what you'd class as global powerhouses. But then when you see someone like Sony, for example, or Ubisoft or Activision, even if you're not a gamer, you've heard of them, and they're global businesses, and yet they still feel the need to go to a Comic Con and say, you can buy this one-off limited edition ghost statue. We've got 10 of them. It's going to cost you $1,000, but you actually have to come to the Comic Con to buy it. And I'm just like, why not make a few more of them, put them on your website, and sell them?
Hmm.
Why not do it that
Then they're
way?
not as
Because
special.
then the
Wait till it
global
starts being
fans get.
DLC, right? You get
Oh
like San
God,
Diego
yeah.
Comic Con DLC for your.
I think we've already
You're
seen
wearing
a
a limited edition
yeah.
Comic Con T-shirt on your gaming character because you.
I
I don't
think
know.
we've
It's it's just today's world. That's the way it is. It's like an advertising thing, and like it's special rewards for people, and a lot of times you justify the cost of getting
yeah,
in
but
with that stuff as well as a consumer.
yeah.
So
And I liken it to a Sony marketing campaign at the moment, and people in Europe will know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's like, for me, when Comic Cons do that, it's frustrating because obviously you can't necessarily get there. You may be a collector like myself. You'd want to be able to at least have the opportunity to buy it. Video gaming is such a huge global industry. Why is the opportunity not there? Why do I have to fly 12,000 miles to Comic Con to buy something that isn't even related to comics? But as I say, Europeans will know what I'm talking about when I talk about this next promotion. Is that Sony USA are doing this thing at the moment called Greatness Awaits, based on the trailer, the PS4 trailer, which has had loads of secret hidden Easter eggs and characters and stuff, and you can actually bid on items using trophies. I won't go into the controversy about cheaters winning and now being clarified and stuff, but you can actually bid for collectibles using your trophies. So once you bid, you can't use those trophies again and so on. And you guys have got some pretty damn rare stuff, and you're talking like a full Hellgast costume and things like that. And you see Sony America doing that, and Sony Europe are not doing that at all. It's like we aren't classed as fans of these particular brands, for example, or we're not included in this whole greatness awaits idea. So therefore, we're not allowed to bid for it, and we then again miss out on these collectibles, these really rare stuff to bid on. And it kind of comes back to what I'm saying about the whole collectible things. It's annoying when you see global brands and global names doing things like that on a localized scale, that it's just frustrating because personally I feel like it's a big middle finger, because it's like saying you may be fans, but because you live in this country, we don't care about you fans. You if you want it, you're gonna have a PSN account, a US PSN account, and earn your trophies on that. And I just, I don't want to digress too much on the greatness of eight things, but that's kind of where I see the comparison with the conventions, especially in the comic book case. It's like, you know, you're not even given the opportunity to go and buy some of this stuff that's even been given away free. And unless you travel quite a long distance and you go to something you're not necessarily interested in, because don't forget, even though there's this huge crossover, there's a lot of gamers out there that have no interest in comics. Yeah, as I say, if you want to go play the PS4, be one of the first people to play the PS4 or pick up limited editions as a collector, you're going to have to go to an event that doesn't even cater for you.
Hmm.
It's not even really aimed at you, and I think that's kind of missing the point, and that's worries me, as I say, about video game companies showing things off at Comic Con conventions. I don't mind video game companies having a smaller presence, for example, or having indie games there to kind of drum up business and interest, but there needs to be a balance to it all. And I think, as I say, one of the solutions to that is also making sure that we have regular video games shows, and not just the big three, as it were, because we've talked about this in previous shows as well, when we talked about things like the PS Vita, for example. In order to sell the PS Vita, as Sony isn't really doing the greatest job in the world, you need to get it in people's hands. But if you only have 3 major gaming shows in a year, how are you going to get into the maximum amount of people's hands?
Mm, I don't know.
Precisely. If you lived in America, for example, and there's going to be a special game show outside of E3, you see with the attendances at E3 rising every year, and the attendances at Gamescom rising every year, and TGS as well. I mean, TGS has come back from the brink at some point. We were talking about cancelling about 5-6 years ago because they just weren't getting the attendances, and now it's like all 3 major game shows are getting increased attention and attendances, to the point where you've even got proper national news outlets, things like certainly here in the UK, you've got the BBC actually going to these convention gaming shows, exhibitions and stuff, and doing reports from there. So it's mainstream enough to warrant more of these kinds of shows. And I can't imagine, from Sony's perspective, that it's going to be burden them too much cost wise, because that then translates into sales, as I say, because you're actually getting products into people's hands at your direct targeted audience.
Yeah. Well, I think, you got to consider too, there's, we talked about this before with, the separation with the regionalization and whatnot. We've got a lot more people over here.
Yeah, but our sales are higher. I'm sorry to tell you, it
Well,
is.
the other thing too is like we've got,
Should you not be following the money?
well, is it a localized thing there where you have one convention and it covers a bigger area because your land mass is kind of you're more compact with the population. I mean, I don't know. I mean, are comics as big over there? I don't know. I don't know all the variables that we're talking about that could be involved, but
I think
I
they're
could
seeing
imagine an E3 or something like that is just a lot more technical, a lot more equipment, a lot more commitment from a lot of different game developers than a comic convention.
Yeah, but
So
well, I
there's
don't
something to
know,
be said about
because
that, I guess.
well, I still think the technical costs are pretty much the same. whether you put it on when you look at some of the stands at a place like Comic Con and the marketing and the advertising and stuff that goes on there, I'd imagine the costs are pretty much the same as they would be at putting on a game
Well,
show.
now wait a minute. If you're gonna go set up your boxes of comics in your table to do autographs, that's a lot different than, well, I've got to have monitors, TVs, gaming systems,
yeah, but that's what video
something
games.
visually and
Yeah, but
electronic
that's what
going on.
video games publishers are doing at Comic Cons now.
Well,
That's
I'm
what I'm
talking
saying to
about
you.
for the convention. If you're setting up the convention, it's a little bit different than if, like, hey, it's a Comic Con and we can give you a couple of wall outlets for you to display your comics at this part of the convention. Then over here, if you want to buy, something that's related to, more electrical output needed. It's a different beast. It's different enough, but it's the same enough that I can see there's a lot of benefit in pulling them together. And I for one believe that all these things are coming together anyway. Because I mean, you look at comics; they used to be just comics, and now they went to a phase of being graphic novels, instead of actual true comics. And
Yeah,
now you have like digital delivery of content. You can't
graphic
even
novels are
find
still
a
about,
good
yeah.
bookstore that's got your book anymore. It's like you can just get on and digitally have it delivered to your tablet.
Yeah.
It's
If you're listening, Marvel UK, yes, we would very much like to buy comics in this country. You know, pro tip there.
get
Um,
digitally delivered to your Vita. You know,
yeah. Well,
so you
we
can.
do, we do actually have a comic store for PSP, but they shut it down. We were under the assumption they were actually, I actually asked them this question, the guys behind it, if they were bringing that to the Vita, and all we heard is, we are working on future projects, as this is the reason why we shut it down. We can't
Yeah,
say more at the moment, and it's like now Vita's been out a year. It's kind of like, where's my comic app?
digital
Because
delivery.
as I say, the funny thing with it is that if you want comics, for example, on a subscription-based service, because Marvel do like a thing through their website where you pay like $10 a
Yeah,
subscription.
subscription.
You can view whatever comics you want as digital online and stuff, and it's like you can't actually do that through Marvel UK at the moment.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, well, how am I supposed to pay for it? Because I don't pay in dollars where I live. So,
Yeah,
you'd have to then start messing about. And I just kind of think, if you're going to really do that digital system properly, you're going to need to do it globally.
yeah.
Bring it to the Vita. The Vita's global product. You saw it. But no, I'm going to have to still say that I completely disagree with you. I think balancing it out needs to happen so that video games industry isn't taking over these conventions, and I think they need their own shows as well. They need to be getting products in people's hands to actually sell them properly. Otherwise, you know, products like the Vita, etc., are not going to sell traditionally well. As it's proven in the sales as it is at the moment. At least it's a solution to part of the
Hmm.
problem.
Nah, I don't know. There's a lot changing right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens because things like this are coming together. You've got a lot of stuff with digitally delivered content. You got a lot of stuff with regionalization, and it's things are going to change here with the PS4 coming out. Obviously, it's going to change a lot of directions of things. So,
Well, I'll tell you this:
interesting to
if they
see.
start pushing comics at Eurogamer in September, I am totally not going. Because that's the nearest game show to me. It's the one that's accessible for me. I go for my video games, man. They start pushing comics at me, and I'm done with it. I like. If I want my
I
comic stuff, I go to a comic
doubt
show.
they would take
If I
over
want my
video
anime
games
stuff,
distribution.
I want to go to my anime shows. If I want my video game stuff, I want to go to my video game shows. And that's the way it should be.
Alrighty then. Well, you just have to move to the U.S. so you get better
Yeah,
opportunities.
get me my green card.
Okay.
Make it happen.
So that about sums it up. I guess conventions are a lot different than when I went to them, and I've debated about going to the Comic Con here in Columbus. It's coming up,
Yeah,
but
go get some video for us.
I don't know. I might. I'm thinking about it. Tickets are still pretty pricey. for that for Columbus, and the other headache is a lot of these like that's not even really close for me. That's still
Can
several
you
hours
not?
drive parking. It's a
I
big
was going to
city.
say, can you not apply for a press pass and get a free ticket?
Possibly,
Just a thought.
possibly.
Not that I'm condoning that behaviour, but by all means try. But yeah, no, I was just going to also add to that and just say, I'd love to hear what other people think as well. I mean, does it, especially if you've been to the conventions as well, does it annoy you that you're getting like video games in your comic soup? Or are you happy to see the merge? Do you agree with me, for example? Do you want more game shows that are more accessible for the average Joe, as opposed to having to travel 12,000 miles and try and win special tickets, or basically do anything you can to gain access to E3, for example? Wouldn't it be better if we had these big shows but also the smaller events? So yeah, when the podcast goes up and live, share your comments with us on that, obviously via Facebook, Twitter and stuff. I'll be around on the Sunday as well, so I'll be able to respond to people. So yeah, share your comments and thoughts with us and let us know. I'll be
Absolutely.
interested to hear from some people whether I'm completely bonkers or, if I have a valid point.
Well, we know you're completely bonkers, but you may have a
Yeah,
valid point. We'll find out. We'll see what people think.
yeah, poll it.
Poll it. Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us for this edition of the PodStation by Trophies on PSN. Please also remember to check us out on the other site, gamingunraveled.com, and give some feedback to some of the changes with the site. And as always, keep up with the news and comments with that, please. These guys could really use, they're ramping up. They could really use your feedback on stories. If you don't like a story, give it a thumbs down. If you do, give it a thumbs up. Provide your feedback into what kind of direction you'd like to see them write news articles on. So,
Yeah, because last thing we want to be doing is giving you stuff you don't want to read. So
indeed. All right. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.